is good or bad, it's seductive. I think anything dangerous at first is also seductive. And so it was important to sort of take people through this emotional trajectory. And we would get together a lot in basements and bars and all over London and New York and talk about the emotions of nuclear weapons. We sat down with the band and they'd talk about a DJ set. And the edit really took form of a DJ set. It sort of takes you through all of these different emotions. So it was important for the film to have that sort of element to it.
Do you want to say something about?
No, not really.
My next question was going to be about the music and kind of its role, but also I'm interested in kind of how you went about it. How was the creative process in terms of, you know, they're equal parts in the film. It's not the visuals and then the music. It's very much a conversation between the two components. So maybe you want to talk about that.
I think again, I'll let you talk about it because you talk to them more than I do.
We did this thing where we practiced saying, "You've got this."
Yeah, right. We was like, over to you.
So we first, when we met with the band, we really talked about. I mean, one of our first conversations, they were like, the way this makes them feel, they just want to do drones for like 55 straight minutes. There was like one aspect of it that was like that, but that wouldn't necessarily take people through all of these different emotions. And I think the music plays a really strong part. It's just as much of an element in this as the visuals itself. Because there have been times that we've heard from people that they say, I really liked it and it was beautiful.
Music was good, but...
Yeah, yeah. And do you want to say more about that? Yeah.
Do I have to press anything or just talk?
Just talk.
Oh, I just talk.
Should we get
yeah, well,
great.
This is the first time that me and Smriti have seen that, as she said, not live, because this is sort of the most minimal version of the film, because it's designed to be seen to be around you. The whole thing is around you. The band's playing live, and you're walking. You can walk around and you can look about, and wherever you look, there's the film. There's all the screens. There's lots of there's screens going around. There's different things happening in different places, and it's the first time the premiere was in New York, and I arrived a little bit late, as I kind of do, and then
Not too loud of an explosion.
as I arrived, there were people being stretchered out by medics because they started fainting, because we'd made this thing and we didn't have a chance to test it on anyone until it started, and we had to have a special announcement to say that please, if you feel faint, seek attention. And but so what you've seen here is a kind of like a small version. This is what we've tried to do is create a public service film. I don't know if anyone remembers the ones about not climbing on pylons and stuff like that, but this is like, don't blow yourselves up with nuclear weapons. So we're trying to get this across to as many people as possible. We can't do it always in 360 degrees immersive experience. I'll stop talking.
So you guys are putting on a performance of the film in Glastonbury coming out soon. Is that correct?
Another brilliant idea. That really.
That's thanks to Stan.
No, but I mean, not a good idea. Well, it might be a good idea.
So Stanley is also the artistic director of Glastonbury of Shangri-La.
No, I'm not.
Of Shangri-La?
No.
That's what they
I
told
just
me.
kind of got in free, like by lying. That's fine. Did they tell you that?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But you
we
can
don't
say
know.
that, if you want.
So.
You can be anyone you want to be.
So
Right.
tomorrow, I need a drink.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we're.
So they've built this like great big thing, like if you like gasometers, they're disappearing across the country, but I love them personally. So they've built this gasometer out of scaffolding, and we're going to have a circular screen all the way around, and it's huge, isn't it? It's really massive.
Yeah, it's massive. It's 8 giant screens, about 30 to 40 foot high all around, and with the band doing the live score.
So if you can imagine, like people at Glastonbury, they'll be a little bit worse for wear, hopefully. Well, no, well, hopefully for them. And then they'll see that.
Yeah. And
Cheery times, folks.
one of the reasons that we really made this film, the film is inspired by a book by the author Eric Schlosser, who wrote Command and Control.
Who unfortunately can't be here to take
all the credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, as he should. And Eric's book talks about accidents and mishaps in nuclear weapon facilities around the U.S. And when I was done reading that book, it left me feeling both really quite angry and quite sad. Angry because I couldn't believe, or sad because I couldn't believe this reality that we are living in now, in a world where there's 15,000 nuclear weapons with 9 countries that have them. And angry because I didn't know a lot about it. I actually I had seen the headlines, but it didn't have that same emotional impact that I think it did for a lot of people who were alive during the Cold War or the Cuban Missile Crisis.
And it's definitely, we had an entertaining couple of evenings going around asking people, just strangers in pubs and bars, how many nuclear weapons do you reckon there are? And we got a lot of answers, ranging from someone going, hey, I think they got rid of all of those, didn't they? And to kind of authoritative, usually men, saying there are 408, I think you'll find. But no one got close to the truth of there being, like 15,000 of these things.
Yeah.
And how many do we need to blow up the whole planet?
So we have enough in this country, or in the world, to destroy the planet 8 times over. But if you destroy a planet
A lot
once,
of times.
there's no planet left to destroy
No planet.
7 more times.
No.
And so in a way we're these terrible hoarders of these machines. And I think for a lot of people that were alive during the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, they had this nuclear cloud above them. It was always duck and cover and air raid shelters. And even, the peace movement came out of an anti-nuclear movement. The symbol for peace that we're all familiar with is semagraph signs for NND, nuclear disarmament. And now we live in a time where the weapons are more dangerous. We're talking about advancements, whether it's North Korea or the US or Trident here in the UK.
Things are looking good.
And yet
for nuclear weapon use.
Yeah. And there's yet sort of a lack of understanding or emotional connection. And so in a way, the bomb was really made to kind of draw that same connection.
So I'd like to ask if anybody would like to pose a question to Smriti and Stanley. We have an opportunity. If you want to, you just stick your hand up. There we go, yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you for making it. I'm just wondering where, if you don't go to Glastonbury, is this Ivan? Yeah. If you don't go to Glastonbury, where could you see it in its kind of form, that 360?
I don't know if you've got a big, large, round building, perfect. But we've like the Roundhouse in London is a place where kind of would be absolutely amazing. But it's a little bit pricey, isn't it, to sort it out with the whole round thing. So I don't know. Actually, you're better.
We've
over
been
to
figuring
you.
it out.
Brilliant.
We've been in the process of figuring out. So we've been in conversations from everyone to the Roundhouse to the Somerset House, BFI here in the UK, Glastonbury. We're really excited to bring it back in 360 in the US in different venues like Walt Disney Hall and other museums.
I don't know if people know what Walt Disney Hall is. They probably think it's a Disney thing.
No, it's a concert hall with it's a Frank Gehry building, and it's a big concert hall that has the LA Philharmonic. So we've been really wanting this to be a shared experience. We discussed the idea of having it in VR, and yet it was really important that this was not something that you experienced alone, but also experienced with other people, because and Stanley talked about this when we first met. When you were 13, like one of the first C&D was really big here, and that was a shared experience. It was something that people really felt like they needed to come together to protest, to stand up against. And so for that reason, we're figuring out different ways that people can go through this all together.
Any other hand? I was going to.
I'll say something.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Well done. 62 years old, and for the last few years I've been aware that young people have got no idea what was going on here, so well done for doing that. There have been some films made, particularly a film called Threads and a film called War Game, which was made and last shown in this country in the early 80s by Channel 4. They have been actively suppressed. I tried to put the War Game on YouTube and it got cut out immediately.
Still?
Yeah. And this is why people don't know. And I've been really anxious about this. I had a rant last year about it. So well done. And just keep working at it, because people still just think it's, you know, like a video experience. And
Threads was set here.
yeah, I know.
Sheffield.
Well, we had the same discussion with another film that was shown last year on the same subject, and two people who lived here were extras in Threads, and they were the only people who had any idea of what was going on. And when I was 13, 14, 15, it was in everybody's mind. We all knew. We all knew. That's why everybody went on the CND marches. That's why everybody knew that this was just fucking insanity. And yet, it has been actively suppressed, like many other things. So well done. And get it into schools. Fight to get these things into schools and wherever you can.
We are doing so.
Yeah, we actually have an education distribution of it. But I think for a lot of people, the reason why is because these weapons are, you know, buried underground, or they're in submarines. They're out of sight and completely out of consciousness. And it's so hard to have an emotional connection to something that is so abstract, that might just be line drawings on a piece of paper until you see one or experience it. And I think that's why the approach that we had with the film was not to tell anyone, not to be so didactic and tell you. I mean, there's no actual piece of simplified information. Like, we never say there's 15,000 nuclear weapons.
This is the first time I've seen the credits. I mean, when we've shown it before, there's a live score, and we've UVA built us this incredible contraption from sodium lights from street lamps that slowly lights up during the last minutes of the film, and then the venue is flooded with yellow light. And what we wanted to do was make something that was not so totally depressing as I still find that, to leave people with actually a slightly better feeling than we're all going to die. And Donald Trump's no, all right, no, stop.
But I was going to say, on the one hand, the footage is, you know, we were talking about the suppression of this, and there is this kind of weird kind of absence and lack of this kind of blind spot to this thing that we also kind of are so aware of simultaneously, this kind of constant threat that we don't talk about anymore. But also a lot of the footage is archive footage that is quite, in certain corners of the internet, people love, you know, like people love, you know, it's definitely available and it's there and it's mesmerizing, especially the stuff cut quite early on in the film with the military parade display. So it's there, but at the same time it's kind of blind spot, and your film kind of just really goes into that blind spot and kind of blows it all open. But yeah, I mean, maybe do you want to speak a little bit about kind of using the archive in that way and kind of like how?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we did with Stan. So Stan's an amazing artist, and his work, all of us in the team, it's so bold, it's so political, it's so graphic, and it's so urgent. And in a way, it was, I remember we were in conversations talking about, here's all this footage. A lot of people have seen this, but it's in the now, and it's present. And so how do we bring this like present element to it? A lot of the documents that we had access to were from Eric, and he spent 7 years writing Command and Control, and had received information that no one had ever seen before. 30% of the film, no one has ever seen before. And so we wanted to add these elements to kind of create this this modern, bold, and current touch to it. And I think it was, I think in a way it's sort of, you don't have to, it's providing this like underlining context to all of it. And it's knowing that before weapons are dangerous, they are seductive. And these are the...
And when you sort of cut from the footage of victims of the only times that nuclear weapons have been used against people aggressively, we go straight to the kind of larking about in the lake with bottles of beer, that the people developing the first nuclear weapon. And I can't. With hindsight, it's impossible to imagine working on a project like that and not considering the implications and what's inevitably going to happen. But they were having a great time, you know?
Yeah, it was this complete perversion of science in a way, and at the same time, it's like, we have some of the original documents of the making of the first atomic bomb that was tested in Alamogordo in New Mexico, and it starts off like anything else. It's just pencil on paper, and you go from there into the most dangerous machine ever built, and it's a process that people forget about. And so I think it was really important for us to bring along that element of it, that everything, even though it happened in silo, is part of this bigger picture that we are all a part of. And you know, human existence, everyone, I mean, from Sagan to Einstein to a lot of the scientists that worked on the nuclear weapon to Oppenheimer have said this, that human existence cannot coexist with nuclear weapons. One will eventually destroy the other. And in our current day, it's more because of accidents and mishaps. You know, it's not necessarily, despite what you see in the headlines, it's not North Korea or even Russia it's cyber attacks. It's accidents.
In Eric's book, there's a lot of accounts of we've nearly lost it a lot of times. This stuff is not talked about. We've got the most dangerous machines on the planet. And the problem with them, one of the problems with them, is that the machines themselves are aging. And every hour that passes, more metal fatigue creeps in. And the engineers who know how to operate them, who know how to service them, keep them going, they are aging, they're retiring, they're dying. And what we've got is a massive armory that needs maintaining. If it's just going to go off by itself if you don't do anything with it. Because they've got to be actively decommissioned by people who know what they're doing.
Is there any other hands up? Oh, and yeah.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you. I really enjoyed the film. It was incredibly emotive. I adore Archive, and I adore the soundtrack as well. So it was a really powerful film. And my emotional trajectory whilst watching it, I imagine, would be similar to what Edward Tellers was like when he created the H1, that kind of sense of accomplishment, but immediate sense of devastation about the thing he invented, because I believe he would have had a sense of accomplishment once he finished the job. And I'm just curious about what your emotional trajectory was like whilst you were making the film, and the sense of accomplishment you would have felt once you completed it.
I'm going to let you start that.
I was depressed the whole time. It's really depressing. I was sitting there and I'm watching it. I find it's fucking awful. Really. I mean, we put a film together, which is great and everything, but like, really? About that? I mean, I don't have a feeling of accomplishment at all, basically. I'm still as depressed as I was before.
You know, we went through 400 hours of footage, thousands and thousands of pages of documents, lived with this for a while, and Eric more than anyone. I think
we had some fun.
We did. There was cider involved. There's a sense, I think for me personally, it's hard to let go of it. It really is. It really is, because it's incredible to know how important this is. And yet I remember when I read the book, I couldn't believe that I just didn't know anything about it. And it felt like if there's anything that I could do, or people that I knew and that I respected, whose work I admired, if we could all come together to almost be a wake-up call to this subject matter. And now, I mean, I spent 2 months ago in photographing nuclear weapons for Nat Geo, And now we sort of we're creating a museum version of it that the MacArthur Foundation has commissioned us to do, to allow people to have a physical experience with this, to create a version of the bomb for a
Going to
museum.
make the most fucked up Hall of Mirrors in the history of Halls of Mirrors. People are gonna go in, not know how to get out, and just bam, 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 that all around them. Because we've got to make it's got to be shorter. It's got to be. I was saying to Smriti earlier, it's like what we've got here is a rich seam of coal, and we've got to squish that. We've got to make a diamond for the museums, for the education thing. We've got to get people just like that, Because the whole thing with this is like. It doesn't matter what we do. If one person who sees this in whatever form whether it's on a laptop or in a Glastonbury covered in mud and on acid, if they go and do something, if they make a difference, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
We can't make a difference.
Yeah.
I can't anyway. I'm too tired.
No, but one thing that I'll say to that is that I think that there's two existential threats that we face as like human beings, and one is climate change, and the other one's nuclear weapon. And I think 30 years ago, or even longer, the climate movement was trying to convince people that climate change is here and it's real. And because we can physically see it, because they've been incredible films like Chasing Ice, Chasing Coral, that's here. You can actually see and physically experience that. And although they're both so important, nuclear weapons are instant, they're urgent, and they're hidden. You don't actually know about them. When we edited the film, we edited in Los Angeles, and oftentimes going into the editor's place, there was I would drive through, and the Hollywood sign was always there. And I thought often, like, what if instead of all the weapons being above ground, they were over the ground? What if they were just there? Where the Hollywood sign is.
Where it's Hollywood is written.
Yeah.
Missiles.
And all 15,000 of them
Hard
above
to get
ground.
them all fitted on that hill, but you could give it a go.
we would do something more about it, and so in that sense, this is really meant to be like that.
Thank you.
Someone else was wanting to ask a question. Wait, was it there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask if people see the film and feel kind of really moved, as we all do, by the issues within it. How can they channel those feelings, and what do we do now? How do we take this feeling from this film, and how do we put that into action?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've been working on a lot at this stage right now, and we've been the film, the project has been supported by a lot of people in the nuclear organizations. A lot of it is awareness. Anti-nuclear, not pro. Just in case there is confusion.
The pro-nuclear.
Yeah. A lot of it is having conversations with people. I mean, Stan mentioned it earlier, but we were at pubs asking people how many nuclear weapons they thought we had.
Yeah.
And would get everything from, didn't we get rid of them?
It was astonishing. We did not get, no one knew. We asked quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. So, I mean, if you were watching this film and you thought, what can I do? Well, really, up to you. There's anti-nuclear organisations. You can set up your own. You can do whatever you want. We're just trying to put this issue right back where it should be, because after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, everyone just goes, oh man, all that stuff's sorted. But it is not sorted. They're still there. The hopeful thing is there are like 15 to 16,000 active nuclear warheads on this planet at the moment. As Smriti said, enough to destroy the entire planet forever, all life, over 8 times. We could do it to 8 planet Earths. We've got enough. But at the height of the Cold War, there was more than twice that many nuclear weapons. 80,000. More? What? Updated information. Sorry, my maths isn't too hot. There was absolutely loads, and we are now down to the miraculously tiny figure of about 15,000. So they've got rid of that many. It's just got to mop up the rest of it. Finish the job.
Yeah, having conversations about them. There's on our website on thebombnow.com. There's organizations that you can team up with. This Saturday, there is a women's march against the bomb that's happening in New York and London and in other places. And we have information that people can share. A lot of it in this country, there's been a big conversation about renewing Trident. And there's been a big movement against that. And in the US, it's the same as well on renewing nuclear weapons. And so a big thing is decommissioning. And also, one thing to add is that we have low combat missiles, that's what they call them, that have the same effects of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We haven't used...
They're just little ones now.
Yeah, they're smaller, and we haven't used nuclear weapons since Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And in the US, Congress just approved a $1 trillion modernization effort for nuclear weapons. So these are weapons that have not been used in 70 years. And when you think about all of the spending in the US, which is 63% of it goes to our defense versus everything else. So, and a lot of it is because, well, we have an interesting president, but also I think a lot of it is also in the voice of what the people want. And this is an issue that a lot of people don't know about, and the younger generation hasn't lived with it. So the more that people can talk about it, that's one of the goals that we have with the film.
Cool. So we've been told that we have to wrap up to make the space for the next film. But you've heard it from Smriti. Visit their website and carry on the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone could do anything, do it.